Assalamu alaikum and peace. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and you're watching Muslim Network TV. Muslim Network TV is always there on Galaxy 19 satellite if you're watching there, or Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and a whole lot of social media. And of course, our own website, muslimnetwork.tv. That is muslimnetwork.tv. There are people who all their lives have been struggling for peace and justice. My parents raised me on peace and justice mission. I work with them. My earliest memory of my father is going to see him in prison, although he was never tried for anything and he was not convicted of anything. But there are some silly, horrible British laws in South Asia that he will be imprisoned preventively without committing any crime or doing anything about that. So he will always be released. So that person, I met one of those person here. I was visiting Houston, and I will always see this brother. He's tall, calm, collected, confident in his faith and principled the way he carries himself. And each time I see him, I find him mostly silent. He will not talk much. If he speaks, he will speaks in almost at the end of the conversation and have some wisdom to share. And he was 14-year-old, he says, when he joined NAACP. And as he was 16-year-old, he became president of NAACP chapter of youth in Gary, Indiana. Now, NAACP right now may not inspire a whole lot of people. It's large, huge, probably more bureaucratic, if I'm correct. And there are other Black Lives Matter and other movements, but at that time, that was the thing. And later on, then he started with Dallas CARE. CARE is Council of American Islamic Relations, a largest Muslim organization when it comes to how many Muslims prefer their affiliation with them. And then Houston, and he worked with them 14, 15 years. Lately, I reconnected with him because I saw his name as a signatory on something which is rare in Muslim community, that a whole lot of Muslim activists, especially Muslim Democrats, they signed a document against a Muslim organization called Engage, criticizing them on many issues. It rarely happens. Muslim community may or may not agree with us, but some entity like Engage, which is claiming to represent Muslims in America, during election process, a whole lot of people signed up, and many of them were elected officials of the Democratic Party and Democratic Convention. When I saw his name there, I saw, oh, that seems to be something serious, because Mustafaa Carroll is not someone who jumps on something like that so easily. So I thought I should talk to this honorable brother about his lifelong struggle. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Right, nice talking to you. Welcome to Muslim Network TV, Brother Mustafaa.
Likewise. Alhamdulillah, I'm glad to be here.
Okay. Mustafaa Carroll is a peace justice leader who started, as I mentioned, with NAACP when he was only 14-year-old, and recently served for 15 years and still continuously works with CARE, which is Council of American Islamic Relations in Texas area. Well, what is happening in our country? Tell me something about it. Since you got such a big glasses, you must have good insight into everything.
Yeah, that helps my vision. Well, for me, what's happening is the struggle continues. It's not a new struggle. It's not something new to America. It didn't start with Donald Trump. It's just, it morphs into different ways of doing the same thing over and over and over. And I think any of us that have been in the struggle for a long time, because I hear some of my brothers that have come here in recent years say, this is not the America that I know. And I continuously tell them that this is the America that I know, that we have an underbelly in this country that's been here from its inception. When I go back and look at, even my own family history, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather was born in 1865, 10 months after the 13th Amendment, which freed the slaves in this country, which meant that my great grandparents were enslaved. He died in 1966, some 101 years later, 2 years after the Civil Rights Act of 64, a year after the Voting Rights Act of 65. He was a member of the United Negro Improvement Association, the Back to Africa movement with the Honorable Marcus Garvey. And he had migrated during that first wave of the Great Migration to East Chicago, Indiana, with his 14 children and wife. So, he had the struggles that they had at that time were, you had Jim Crow that started around 1877. You had people had at least 800 in his home state of Alabama, at least 800 statutes in their constitution that govern the way people interacted with each other, black and white. Lynchings were pretty common. You could get lynched and killed for little or nothing. That went on for many, many years. That went on even, I guess, until 85, we had the last, what they called the last real lynching. But those things have been going on forever. Police brutality was happening when I was a child. I grew up in Gary. So, Chicago had a horrible reputation for its relationship with the Black community. In fact, I was sharing with some people that they had what they called a throwdown gun, which is if they shot somebody unjustly, they would just get that extra gun, put their fingerprints on it, and throw it down and say that he came at us, or he had a weapon, or what have you.
So planting some evidence.
Yeah, they just planted evidence on him, and nothing ever happened. And nothing happened.
That was on in Chicago, brother. I remember marching there was a police officer, Burge, and we had this campaign, Purge Burge, because he used to get hold of blacks and torture them into confessing anything.
Yeah. And that's Chicago. Chicago's always been a pretty rough place. But this is not just Chicago. This is across the country. We've had these issues. And our president has just tapped into it. It's not like he invented it. It's not like it went away because of the Civil Rights Act. It didn't go away after the Civil Rights Movement started in 1954. It didn't go away with Brown versus the Board of Education. It's been here. And so I think it's shocking to us, many of us, in 2020 that we still are grappling with this issue. But this issue is here, and it's always, and we haven't dealt with it. That's one of the issues. We haven't really dealt with it in a productive, positive way.
So when you say, brother, your great-grandfather passed away when he was, 105-year-old?
101.
101-year-old. Were you able to learn from him his stories of slavery and the post-slavery?
Well, he wasn't enslaved, but he had a lot to say about his experiences in the South, and all of my relatives, because my family is from the South, all of them. My mother's family is from Russell County, Alabama. My dad's from Hallettsville, Texas. And they all had really trying experiences, and they were upright people. That's the part that really gets you, is that I often tell folks that my parents wouldn't lie to save my life. If they had to tell a lie to save my life, they'd say, well, son, we sure hate to see you go out like this, but, and they were treated like that. So we can always say, you hear today, they have changed the dialect, the language. They'll say, well, they were thugs, well, my folks weren't thugs. In fact, my folks told us if we ever did anything, the police didn't have to worry because they're going to take us to jail. So, it's so difficult the things that I heard, and especially with my father, they served in the military, and military was segregated and had lots of racial issues, et cetera, at that time that they experienced. And one of those, I remember him telling me about being in Corpus Christi, Texas, and some of the white soldiers erected this tin building and wrote on it for niggers, and that was where all the black troops were supposed to stay. And he tells the story and actually that story had a really good ending, because what happened was there was a near riot, of course, on the base. The captain comes down, he's a white guy, and he says, "Who put this blank blank sign on this building?" And one of the officers said, "I did, sir." And he said, "Well, don't you know there are none of those kinds of folks in the Navy? We only have men in the Navy." And he ordered them to take that sign down, tear that building down, and put those men up with everybody else. And my father said at that point that, they would have went to hell and back for him. But we have stories like that. And I really, even despite the negative stories that we hear, which we have lots of, we have many stories that we could actually build upon to kind of, hopefully to kind of resolve some of the issues that we're facing now.
So, brother, what about putting those stories down? I mean, passing on to the other generation. I mean, two-way, not only the families and Black Muslims, but also the immigrants. You started your conversation by saying that this is not a country I can recognize. And you saying, that, well, this is a country exactly the way I recognize it. So,
yes.
So this is so there is an education needed for the next generation of Blacks, but also the next generation and current generation of immigrant Muslims who are substantial in our country.
Yes, absolutely. And believe it or not, I have been telling my kids are tired of hearing my stories. You know how your kids are. You have less credibility with your family members. But they say, "Pop, we've heard that forever." We don't want them to. I say, "I know you've heard it, but you took English forever also in school and college. So, just listen a little bit more." I have actually, we have been trying to tell for years. I mean, it's not something I just started doing. Before 9/11, I used to say this, and brothers would tell me, "Don't complain, and this is the greatest country," and blah, blah, blah. And I say, "Brother, yeah, no argument that the country has greatness, but there's a part of this country that you don't know, that you don't understand." And until 9/11, my comments had no traction. Post 9/11, people are starting to see a different kind of America, a different type of response than they did earlier. And so now I think people are more prone to talk about it. But we have so much literature on it. And one of the things that I've tried to encourage other African Americans, especially our scholars, is to make sure that we document these cases and write them in a way and show some resolve. One of the things that the narratives that we have now are so negative, that what we know about the Black experience from someone else is that we got drug dealers, we got this, we got that. But just think about it. 1950, we educated more African Americans than we do right now. We had 50% men, 50% women. Of course, most of our people went to the Black college system because of discrimination. That we created our own college system. You have places like Morehouse, Spelman.
Yes, the Mustafaa. I'm glad you mentioned Morehouse. I was honored in the Dr. King Chapel there for the work which I do. So I felt very overwhelmed because of its history. But I want to verify. You just says in 1950s we have more Blacks college graduates than they are now.
Well, we had more Blacks and per capita. We had more going to college, and we were educating men and women. Today, according to the Pew, I think it was like 75% women and 25% men. We have a lot of things that have happened today that didn't even happen when I was a kid. One of those things, and we were talking about activism. We had our mentorship was our parents and our elders, and there was a connection that we had that is the reason why I'm an activist now, that we still had a connection to our folks, and they understood the struggle. It wasn't like, you hear some of the millennials or young people today, they'll say stuff like, we're not our parents and we're going to get it done, et cetera, et cetera. They don't understand the struggle. We all moved from one plane to another plane. That this struggle has not ended, and it will not end with them either. We think it'll move. We hope, we pray that it'll move to a better place. But if you look at, I don't think my grandfather ever thought there would be a Black mayor, yet alone a Black president. I didn't think we'd ever have a Black president in my lifetime. Whether we like the politics or not, that was something that just wasn't going to ever happen. And when it did happen, I think it scared everybody. I mean, I even got scared. I said, "Oh my God, what happened?" But we have moved from one plane to another thing. And the other thing is,
let's take a short break, Brother Mustafaa Carroll. This is very interesting that you gave me a big contrast that in 50s there were 50% men who were college graduates, and now there are 25%. At the same time, you have a Black president and now most likely a Black vice president in this country. So let's talk more. You're watching Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and I'm talking with Mustafaa Carroll. We'll be right back after these messages.
My wife, she's a professor at the University of Cincinnati, who's Catholic, and by her watching and listening to our 3-year-old son watch Adam's World, she ended up taking Kalima Shahada. She embraced Islam because she learned so much about Islam and the other prophets. It really affected our life in a great way, and because of Sound Vision and Adam's World, we're Muslims.
I took my Shahada 15 years ago, and I actually am from a rural part of Ohio. And so I found the catalog for Sound Vision, and I ordered the tapes and the CDs and the books, and I used those, and especially for my little daughter, that's how we basically learned our Islam, and Islam entered our hearts through the wonderful works of Sound Vision.
Okay, assalamu alaikum, brother. I just want you to know that I love the Sound Vision website, that a lot of times when I'm looking for information, especially as it relates to homelessness, domestic violence, and women issues, I go to that website, and then I see what you've written, and then I copy and paste it and spread the word, because the wisdom is there. So I can't do any better than what Sound Vision has already done.
Sound Vision is our survival guide. It is the organization that provides skills for Muslims how to survive and thrive in this community here in the U.S.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Anam, I'm in 11th grade, and I grew up with Adam's World, and what it taught me was unity, respect, and love for the Muslim Ummah.
Adam's World is the greatest show ever made. Take me to the Kaaba, man. I love that puppet.
Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. I'm talking with my friend and brother Mustafaa Carroll from Texas, who is part from Texas, part from Alabama in terms of heritage, but a whole lot of history in Gary, Indiana. So tell me, what got you when you were 14-year-old to get started with the NAACP? You didn't have anything better to do?
Yeah, I was so bored I didn't have nothing to do. No, what happened? Well, my folks were always really not physically active, but they were very in tune with what was going on. There was another lady in our community. Her name was Miss Ruth Waller. Miss Waller was in the NAACP, and she was also the advisor for the youth council. And I can't remember how I got connected with her, but I think it was through our church at that time. And I went and I got involved with the NAACP.
What church you used to go to? Was it some Baptist church?
I went to First Baptist Church in Gary, Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah, I was very involved in the church. In fact, even after we can talk about my trajectory in terms of religion in a few minutes, but Miss Waller was a very active community member. At that time, Mayor Hatcher, Gordon Hatcher, was running for mayor of the city of Gary, and he was the first Black mayor that we ultimately got. And Miss Waller was very active on that scene, and she would take us down to city council meetings. I think they met at least twice a week at that time. And so I was going, and my parents, my folks believed that I was going a little too much at the time. But I was going, and she was like my inspiration. And ultimately I became president, I think between 15 and 16, because I hadn't turned 16 yet. I became president before Dr. King was killed. Dr. King was killed shortly after my 16th birthday, and which was a big blow. I mean, and I'm old enough to remember President Kennedy being killed and so forth. And so all of that really troubled me. And then I was a fairly studious kid. I read 4 books a week, and I got hold to the autobiography of Frederick Douglass. I must have read that 2 or 3 times before I even went to high school or college. And so another book I was just an avid reader. So I was reading everything that I could about the struggle. And so that, I think all of that did it. Mm-hmm.
So NAACP at time attracted younger people, because right now I see it's a big organization, mega organization. It's more organization than a movement. To attract younger people like you, it must be a different type of NAACP.
It was right in the middle of the civil rights era. I mean, if you look at some of the other people, Fred Hampton, who got killed in Chicago, was a former youth council president for the NAACP there in Chicago. My cousin, who later went on to Tufts Medical School, he was the president of NAACP Youth Council in East Chicago. We had a friend in Indianapolis who was president of NAACP named Berto Elmore a long time ago. And so we had type of people now leading Black Lives Matter. If they were in that late 60s, they will be part of NAACP. Would you say that? Well, possibly that, because we had a lot of organizations. You had the NAACP, you had SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which is in a college group mostly. You also had the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. You had different groups, but they would have been active in something. Whether or not they would have been in the NAACP Youth Council, it's a strong possibility that they would have, because the NAACP was a very active civil rights organization at that time. I mean, we were active.
How you carry, I mean, now you have been for 15, 16 years in some capacity. executive director or board member of Council of American Islamic Organization CARE. So what are the lessons of NAAC experience which you have brought to the Muslim struggle for civil rights?
Oh, wow. So many. Well, one thing is, we have got to engage with our youth. And we got to do it in meaningful ways. One of the problems that we have in the Muslim community is that we kind of like, we hamstring the youth. You're a youth for much too long. I mean, you're a youth until you're like 35, 40. When you go to college, come back, we put them, ask them to take care of the youth groups and stuff like that. And we need to integrate these people. When we came back from college, they said, our elders told us, don't leave us, come back and lead us. And which is a different mentality. And we need to get our young people involved and engaged at young ages, because that's what did it for me. I was involved in our community at a young age. And consequently, I'm still involved. I mean, it's one of those things that I tell people, you can't retire from community work. It just doesn't go like that. You retire from Raytheon, Boeing, AT&T, Pac Bell, etc. But you don't retire from community work. So that's one lesson. The other lesson is to understand that it's not good enough just to be in the streets, just to be protesting. It is not good enough for us just to go out and protest. We have got to have some political strategies underneath that. And if you don't, all you're doing is yelling. You have to have a threat of political change. And the only way that you can have a threat of political change is, through our vote, which is a very primary, it's very basic. It's not even the thing. But if you're not voting, then the likelihood that you're going to do anything else is lesser. It's almost like telling somebody to learn how to play football, but you haven't learned how to walk. So those are just a few of the lessons. I mean, we had, if you look at all the old footage of the civil rights movement, people were marching, but they leveraged that march back in the government. Dr. King, and they spent hours at the march. You also had other groups like the Nation of Islam. People can say what they want about them, but the Nation of Islam actually helped to change how Black people saw themselves. Now, whether or not we want to agree with the religiosity of it, that's a whole nother issue. You had SNCC with Stokely Carmichael, later to become Kwame Ture, who actually coined the phrase Black Power. And they had robust discussions during the marches with Dr. King. They had very robust discussions about strategy and about where they were going. And they still maintain a level of respect, even though they had a different ideology or about where we were going. Very few Black folks in America were against the idea of us being free. It was clear that we weren't free.
So
and it's not
do you think that CARE and other Muslim organizations have learned enough from the history of their portion of the Muslim community, African American, and the history of civil rights movement? So what are your reflections on that?
I think people in CARE have learned a lot. The problem has been that it hasn't translated fully to the Muslim community. The Muslim community is different.
But isn't CARE the largest organization of Muslim community?
Yes. It's the largest civil rights organization, but training, teaching, educating Muslims on the historical challenges that have been faced in this country and where they're at now is very difficult. You can tell them. I can tell people. I've given workshops where I sit down and tell people about the history, even of Muslims in this country and how we came about, or about the history of civil rights, the history of African American. But they have to be able to relate those stories to what's happening.
So why do you think CARE has not been successful in getting a broader Muslim community. If CARE has understood the lessons which you're saying a Muslim community should learn, why they are unable to translate that to the broader Muslim community? What is stopping that?
Well, I think CARE is doing a okay job. That's not the issue. The Muslim community is not in the same place that other marginalized communities have been in. That makes it difficult. The Muslim community is, you have at least close to 60% of the Muslim community are formally educated, around almost 20% of medical doctors, 30% engineers, etc. They live in the suburbs. They've come after all the heavy lifting has been done. And for a lot of other sociological reasons, they don't necessarily see themselves in the same place, nor do they want to be. The other thing is the Muslim community has issues internally that we have to work on. Like we have some racism and things inside the community that kind of prohibits us from actually joining with other groups, other people, etc., and actually internalizing this struggle. But if the Muslim community is not careful, they will be in the same spot, except there'll be few excuses for them to be that. I mean, if you look at the people in the civil rights movement were grassroots. Many in them early years were uneducated. They were washerwomen and sharecroppers, but they actually believed in what they were doing, and they took it to heart. That is not where we are as a Muslim community. And that's what
I remember three things very distinct about you. One was, of course, whenever I come to Houston, that's where I met you most of the time. I was always honored that you will take time to come, sit quiet, listen, and sometime contribute. So this tall and calm brother, I remember. Then the second brother I saw on video, that somewhere in Austin, somebody grabbed the mic away from Muslims, and you went there and got the mic back in control. And a third thing is M-Gate. So I will come to M-Gate, but tell me about what was that incident of microphone snatching, which you were nicely, without hitting anybody, were successful in taking it back. And do you have, you have a lot of, memories of racism, but share something which you felt as a Muslim, some incident of Islamophobia.
Well, that incident, I don't know who that brother was. But anyway, every year, we have our Texas Muslim Capital Day to take our youth, probably 80% or more of the people we take to the state capitol, so that they can learn about their government, get engaged with officials, etc. Since 9/11, post 9/11, there's been a lot of scuttlebutt about what the Muslims are here to do. And part of that is that there was a lot of rumors going around that Muslims are trying to bring Sharia law, and your daughters are going to wear burqas, and your sons are going to be terrorists, and all this kind of stuff. This was going on. So during just talking about that specific incident, those people believe that too. I mean, they came in and Dr. King said something that has stuck with me a long time. He says something to the effect that there's nothing more scary, more terrifying than the sincerely ignorant person. And that's what those people were. They were sincerely ignorant. I don't think they were there just for show. They really believed that the Muslims were coming there to take over the capital and proclaim it for Islam and all that other stuff. So this lady was she wasn't with us, but she stood up there on the stage. And I saw her and I said, geez, looks like she's up to something. But I didn't know what the deal was because she didn't come with us. And we should have had better. We had security. We had the state capitol. We always do because we get threats every time we go. And next thing I knew, she ran up and got the mic and started proclaiming Christianity and that we'll never succumb to the Muslims and blah, blah, blah. And we kept calling for security. And the police couldn't hear us because there were people with bullhorns yelling at us all the time. The whole time we were there, they were yelling. So I'm sure the police, they were facing that crowd to make sure that they didn't get integrated with our group. And so finally, when we just ran out of options, I said, "Oh, we got to stop this." So I ran up and grabbed the mic. And when I first grabbed it, I pulled it a little bit, maybe too hard. And the brother that was there, he said, "Oh, hold up," because what it was going to look like was that this big black man just grew and threw this white woman on the ground. So we didn't want that image, but we were just trying to stop her from commandeering our mic and just using it. And it was a wild day. Now, the upside to that day was where it was just a rally to get people to be encouraged and to be, show the support and so forth. That incident went all over the country, and we got a lot of press because we were there. It did the opposite of whatever they wanted it to do. We had more press there that day, and for weeks afterwards, we were getting more interviews about that single incident than anything. I mean, we couldn't have asked for any press to be there and got that many. But because of that incident, that's what did it. And then we had the Speaker of the House come out, and they came out publicly and denounced all that was going on. We also had Molly White, who was a representative there to tell the Muslims if they come to her office, they're going to have to take the Pledge of Allegiance and denounce terrorism. And we didn't say a word, and other people started a campaign to get her out of office. Now, the Muslims didn't have to do anything. And that's what I mean by we got to remember those lessons, because it's so hard to keep a balance. When you're doing the work that we do, which is just like, engrossed in a lot of negative stuff, it's sometimes hard to remember all the good people that stood up for you, that came to your aid. And I can just, even in my own life, I can go back and just name people who actually stood up and were counted, that they did it at times when it was really difficult.
Yes,
And
it is very important to remember Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had always, communication, connecting with people, relationship, coalition, and alliances. So you're right. I mean, somebody else stood up and helped. You're watching Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. I'm talking with Carroll, Mustafaa Carroll, and we will be right back after these messages.
Okay.
What was it like when you started this network out, when you started Sound Vision those many years ago?
After 9/11, one lady called me and she says, what is your channel which I can watch? And I say, I'm sorry, we don't have a channel. And you know what she said? She said, then how America will know about you?
SubhanAllah. Anything you want to say to the people who are watching? That we had one sister who messaged that she grew up on Sound Vision. What do you say to the people who have been long supporters?
Thank you. Thank you. It is because of you we are able to do all of that. So the generation of Adam's world, you need to take it over for the next generation. And that's my invitation to you, to keep telling everybody where to watch. They can watch it on Galaxy 19 satellite, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, or EasyThing, MuslimNetwork.tv, or our YouTube channel, or our Facebook channel. And with your help, inshallah, ladies, the one who called me, what channel should I watch Muslims on? Answer is here and now.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's your brother Zain Bika from South Africa. One of the first educational programs ever produced for Muslim children was the ever popular Adam's World series. The colorful and comical Muslim puppet stole the heart of a generation. Sound Vision will be releasing brand new episodes of Adam's World with the launch of a Adam's World app. Subscribers will enjoy new Adam's World episodes as they are released, as well as all the classic episodes of Adam's World. So visit adamsworldapp.com now to learn more, subscribe, and enjoy new adventures of Adam and his friends. And let's keep helping tomorrow's Muslims today. Assalamu alaikum.
Adam's World. Believe me, there's a lot to see. Bismillah, let's explore.
Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and you're joining us in conversation with Mustafaa Carroll. Well, Mustafaa Carroll, you signed this document, which is highly critical of Engage. I did not know much about Engage, except that they were claiming to be representing Muslims in America. Could you tell us, why did you decide to sign a public document against a Muslim entity?
Well, I take it really serious that, we try to have unity in the community and that we don't do anything that's going to stop the good works of anybody. That's number one. I've had my own personal and professional experiences with some of the members of Engage, and I'm going to share just a few without naming names, but I can.
They were members or leaders?
They're actually leaders of the local chapters in Houston and so forth. When I first came to Houston as the executive director of CARE Houston, one of the largest organizations, I wasn't able to put any flyers up to do Know Your Rights. I couldn't do anything. And I didn't know what had happened. I thought maybe there was some bad blood, that people just weren't getting along, and which probably all of that's true as well. Around the second year I was there, it's 2011, somewhere around there, I got a flyer that was saying that they were going to have an Islamophobia conference. One of the members, or one of the people in Engage now, what we call Engage, sends a flyer around, and we're not on it. The ADL is on it. And I call them and I say, brother, how is it that you're having an Islamophobia workshop, seminar, program, and we haven't been invited? And this brother told me, quote unquote, if I invite you, the ADL won't come. The ADL is the Anti-Defamation League, right? To which I said,
which is a Jewish Zionist organization to protect civil rights of the Jewish people.
Absolutely. So I told him, I said, well, so be it. Then I found out later that members of that are supposedly, and now I have proof that they're on the board, that they're in bed with them, that they're trying to normalize relations. Well, here's my feeling. Until the Palestinian people are free, just like until Indians are free, until the Rohingyas are free, until all these folks are free, our duty as Muslims is to work towards that end, and is to work toward the end of freedom of people in this country as well. And so I didn't see that. What I see is people taking political advantage. This is my own personal opinion. of a situation where they're benefiting from it, but the community, what it is that the community needs is not a priority. And it's not my job as a member of CARE or the Muslim community to normalize any relations with anybody without those parties being present. In other words, I don't have the right to normalize relations with any group that is anti-Muslim, Palestinian, etc. The Palestinians, they have to be on the table. They have to be at the table. And so after I got it and I read it, I didn't see nothing they were saying wasn't true. The danger about this and the issues that I see is that these people are going to be on a fast track to be the leaders of the Muslim community. And
so you're saying the engaged people not only claiming to represent Muslim, but you're concerned that their leadership, which is aligning with ADL in your experience and keeping CARE out, may continue the same behavior in future.
Yeah, and I know, well, not just ADL, but also the AJC, etc. And my thing is this: I don't have anything against those groups per se. I mean, the ADL listed CARE several years ago as one of the top 10 enemies to the state of Israel for no apparent reason. Because CARE doesn't have
ADL listed CARE as the top enemy of Israel. What ADL got to do with Israel?
As one of the top 10 enemies of the state of Israel for no apparent reason. This was right during the Holy Land Foundation trial. We found ourselves on a list and we had not done anything. Now, for somebody in the Muslim community, we fought every day for the civil rights of Muslims to be able to worship, practice their faith, not be maligned, not be marginalized, etc. And then, you actually will not allow them to be on a Islamophobia conference versus the ADL, or you'll have partnerships with groups of people or organizations, I should say, because I don't think it's all the people. It's an organizational position. But you cannot build up your own organizations. To me, that's an issue. That tells me that we're not ready for the real struggle. The struggle doesn't get accomplished because you kowtow to other groups. The struggle doesn't happen because you turn your back on Muslim organizations.
So engaged leaders, when they have visited Israel on the funding of Zionist organizations in America, have you researched it? Have you talked to engaged people? Why did they visit Israel on the funding of Zionists in America?
No, I haven't talked to. I think I spoke with one person in confidence and told them what the problem was and why people are upset, because this is just a program that they've been doing for a while.
Also, it is not one party going, but they are consistently going there.
Mm.
And when they visit Israel, do they go to the occupied territory, Gaza, and meet Palestinians?
I doubt that. I don't think so. I haven't been there, so I don't know what they do. But I know people who have gone. I even had friends of mine from LULAC call me, and they said, "Well, Mustafaa, because we're coalition partners." They say, "If we go to on this trip to Israel, are you going to be upset?" And I said, "No." I said, "But you asked them to take you to the West Bank and Gaza. You asked them to show you the whole situation." And they've been taking, this is a trip that's being sponsored. It gives you a feel-good trip about the state of Israel, which, we know not all the Jewish folks are doing stuff, but the state of Israel itself has taken an anti-Muslim position. And what they're doing now is finding the good Muslims, quote unquote, versus those bad Muslims. Now, let me explain what I believe.
I definitely believe you are a bad Muslim right there.
Yeah, that's it. If you don't 100% agree with everything that's going on in the state of Israel, then you are on the opposite side. It's a sum-zero game. And so we have to be really careful about this. But it appears, and I want to give the best spin on this, it appears that our community, that some of our community members are not mature politically. So maybe they don't understand the impact that this is having on us as a community. We don't, look, no one in this country gets anything by rolling over. You get it by standing up for your rights and demanding your rights. And that's part of the struggle. That's when you get all the enemies. That's when you lose jobs. That's when, look at all our leaders that got killed because they stood up. Dr. King, most peaceful man on the planet at his time, was killed, murdered. They called him Martin Luther King. They told him he was a communist sympathizer. He was hated immensely. When I was a kid, all this love that you hear about Dr. King now didn't exist. They hated him because and the black folks, a lot of them hated him because he brought heat wherever he went. You know, look at some of the folks that stood up that didn't have anything. You know, you look at Fannie Lou Hamer down in Mississippi. In 1964, the Dixiecrats, which were the Southern Democrats, went to the National Democratic Convention on a segregationist platform. One lady, Fannie Lou Hamer, said that they would split the party with the Mississippi Delta Freedom Party if you did that, and she did. So in 1968, it wasn't there, but she got beat up, jailed. She was a washerwoman, sharecropper, didn't have a penny. And this is what happened. This is the price. So when I see people doing things like that, and you have no reason to do it, I mean, you really don't. The Muslim community has all the demographics necessary for waging its own campaign for freedom and equality in this country. And in less time than we spent, we could be a successful community. We don't have to do those types of things. We don't have to kiss up to people to get their approval. We don't need anyone's approval as long as we're doing the right thing. If we're doing wrong, that's one thing. But when we're doing the right thing for the right reasons, and then we see people roll over because they just want to be liked, or they think that once I get in, when you dance with those types of individuals, those types of things, and you playing with other people's rights, then what happens is that you're going to continue dancing because it doesn't go away. And it doesn't, this is a lesson, a hard lesson that we learn.
So you dealt directly with engaged leaders who denied CARE, because if CARE speaks in his anti-Islamophobia conference, ADL is going to be upset with them and pull it out. And ADL, you're saying, has on record calling CARE, what did they exactly call CARE?
They said they had listed us with 10 other organizations that they considered was some of the 10 greatest enemies to the state of Israel, for no apparent reason. I mean, I've looked it up, tried to figure out, why are you calling us that? Now, I don't represent CARE now, so I don't want to, let's not confuse this. This is Mustafaa Carroll speaking.
Okay.
But while I was with CARE, that's what I saw.
So
and that's what
the trip which were sponsored of Engage, it is not one leader, chair, co-chair, but other board member have gone. Has that thing been established?
Has what now? I misunderstood.
It is a little bit, the things which are being said, that there is a Clarion project which is funded by, they are funding this thing, the trip people are making to Israel, the Muslims who are making trip to Israel, and aligning with ADL, which attacks CARE. So that those engaged leaders, it is a whole lot of people have signed that they have gone there. Do they deny they haven't gone there, engaged leaders, or they accept it?
I think we should get them on the line. I haven't talked to engaged leaders. I know 2 or 3 leaders or people who've been actively engaged with engaged, and they weren't engaged when I had my experience. They weren't engaged leaders. They were. I think it was emerge, and then they went on. The other thing is we actually tried before they changed the name. We actually tried to partner with them back, I think, during the second term when Obama was running the second time. And we met 2 young ladies at an event. I think it was with the Asian Democrat group. They were there, we were there, and they asked us what we did, and we told them, and they told us what they did. And they said, we're trying to get Muslims to vote. Well, at the time, CARE had purchased 14,000 or so names for us to call, sign, to get to vote in the Muslim community. I think it might have been either Harris County or Fort Bend County. They had Montgomery and something else. And we all got excited and said, okay, we're going to work together. And later was to find out that their leaders decided that, no, we don't work with CARE, period. And so, my thing is, I hate to be in these kind of conversations without them. So, I'd absolutely want them to be on, so we're not eating the flesh of our brother and all this kind of stuff. But
that is, in media, any public organization, any public document, any public conversation does not fall into that category. And I'm thankful that you have signed along with a whole lot of people and willing to speak. We definitely would like them to open up. And I went and visited their website before preparing for these things. So what is their formal position? I have spoken to their leaders. What is their formal position in these particular areas? And I think discussing Muslim organization publicly, it's a legitimate thing in Islamic history as well as in America. If we don't discuss those people who claim to be our leaders, who else is going to discuss those? So I would like to thank you, Brother Mustafaa Carroll, for being with us. Thank you so much for your time. And I would like to also thank our producer, Sher Dil Khan, and Dr. Abdul Wahid, and ask producers that maybe next show we need to have is in which a couple of people who are criticizing Engage and couple of people who are leaders of Engage. That type of a show, I think, will be more beneficial as well. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for watching. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and you're watching Muslim Network TV on Galaxy 19 satellite, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and our own website, muslimnetwork.tv. Peace. Salam.
Wa alaikum salam.